Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a special edition of the Focal Plane podcast at St. Wilfrid's Hospice in Eastbourne. And one of the things behind the compassion that happens at a hospice is the clinical leadership. So that makes sure that the care is excellent, it's of the highest standards, and it's dignified. And to do that, we need some very special people around us. And I'm really very privileged to be able to speak to the Associate Director of Clinical Services, Ruth. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this role.
So I've worked at the hospice for nearly 27 years, which is a long time. I came down from London. I'd worked in Royal Marsden and really gravitated towards kind of oncology and end-of-life care. I got a job here at the hospice in Millgap Road, and that was a complete culture shock because I'd never worked in such an environment. But actually, I can't imagine, and that sounds really cliched, but I can't imagine now working anywhere else. Yeah. And I think for me, I originally worked on the inpatient unit as a manager there, and then worked there for a long time. Obviously, we came over to this site, and I think we were instrumental in the development of what we wanted our hospice to be like for the future. And then I got the opportunity to become, to lead the clinical teams across both services, so inpatient unit and community teams. And it's been a roller coaster, but a real privilege to. I'm in this role now, and I can still have patient contact, which is what it's all about for me.
And tell me a bit about that culture shock that you mentioned when you went into the realm of into the realm of, say, palliative care, or where were you coming from, and what was that shock that you noticed?
Well, I was coming from London, down to a town by the sea. Yeah. I'd been used to working in a big general hospital. Yeah. Coming down here to a much smaller environment was completely different. And also end-of-life care at that point was very different to how it is and how it's progressed over the years. But I think it's always been, there's always been a really great team approach. And as a team, we've always been listened to. And I try now in my role to make sure that I listen to the teams and also listen to patients and carers. So, yeah.
Yeah, you talk about how things have changed over the years around how, this would be true, I imagine, of all sorts of care in any kind of guise that happens in either a hospital, general community setting. But there's something fundamentally different about palliative care, right? A lot of my assumption around that would be to do with how public perception of it changes.
Yes, absolutely. And I think from what we always wanted when we built this building was that anybody could enter the building. Yeah. So it's not about, it wasn't about them coming to see somebody that they knew in the inpatient unit, but it was about providing a community space, which did not have the connotations of, oh my goodness, you're going to a hospice, everybody dies. Yeah. And that has been a real success story, I think, because we have, groups on a daily basis that come and sit in the cafe, mother and baby groups, knitting groups, all kinds of people. And what's really been good is some of the relatives of patients that we've had on the inpatient unit or in the community, they come back every week and they sit, they have, like a space where they can remember. Yeah. But then they also get on with their lives. And it's good for us because we can chat with them, see how they're getting on. Yeah. And so that has provided, a real opportunity to change the perception of hospices and end-of-life care. I'm not saying it's gone away. There are still some people that, when a hospice is mentioned, they don't want to come into us. But I think we're also breaking down barriers because we are encouraging patients much earlier on in their disease trajectory to come into the hospice and actually just see what it's like. Yeah. Get a feel for it. Yeah. Look around the ward. This is where you might come meet the community teams that might come to your home. Yeah. It actually is not, it's not scary. And the building has got a real feel. It never feels sad. We deal with a massive amount of sadness, but I think coming in, there's a feeling of light, space, energy, and it's all about making sure that the end is what the patient and family want it to be. There's so many goals that still can be reached for a patient, and we're very much, that's what we want to kind of help them to meet.
And in that, with that last thing you just mentioned, so many goals that you will have as in your clinical mindset around making sure, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this, making sure that people are not having to worry about symptoms that might affect them when they're close towards that very vulnerable juncture that they'll experience, that they're not experiencing pain, that they're actually living as they should.
Yeah.
And that's a huge clinical challenge, right? Particularly around some of your patients who I imagine will have some very complex issues going on.
Yeah.
And also you mentioning about how the families and community interacts with that. Where are the challenges that you see in terms of delivering hospice care at the moment that you face on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's interesting, and there are several challenges, and you are right, we do see the most complex patients, particularly on the inpatient unit, because we're a specialist unit, and that's what our bread and butter is.
Yes.
I think for us, it's about being honest, because we cannot take all that pain away or all that suffering, but we can talk about it. We've got time, and we can help people to prepare. And I think honesty is so much better than just pretending that we can make everything better.
Yeah.
And I think, some of the more difficult conversations that people shy away from are that they're not going to be able to say what they think the patient wants them to say. But being honest is 100% better. I think the challenge, number one challenge is finance. It's a huge financial problem with hospices across the country, and staffing, and being able to maintain what makes us special. What makes us special is that we've got the time to be with patients and families, but we've really had to look at how we do that in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of using volunteers to enhance our care provision, using volunteers in a different way, using staff in a different way, and trying to make sure that we've got staff who work across all of clinical services, so they see the patient across their journey. And that makes a real difference. And it means that families and patients feel more secure because they've established that relationship. So that helps. And I think the challenge is that end-of-life care is really, really important. We all know we're all going to die. And I think we really have to have that focus on making sure it's not just depending on what postcode you live in. It should be across the board for everybody to be able to accept it. And for us as a hospice, it's also going out into the community. It's working with care homes. It's working with care agencies. We can't do everything, but we can enable other people to do it as well.
And on that, perhaps one can maybe draw a few dots from what you said, but just so I understand this, what are the risks then when it comes to the big challenge that you said around funding? And you gave us some examples of actually, what are the core constructs of the care that you provide, the continuity, the time, the expertise. What is that risk if things aren't supported in the way they should be?
Well, the fundamentals of actually palliative care provision. We have made a commitment to and we did this work a few months ago, but what actually does it mean for us to be able to carry on providing palliative care to patients and families? And we feel very strongly that we have to maintain our multidisciplinary approach. It's not just about doctors and nurses, it's about our therapies teams, our physios, our OTs, our counsellors, our spiritual support. We have to have the team to have the impact. And we need to protect that because there isn't anybody else out in that wider community who are able to provide such the support that we do.
And, with with that multidisciplinary approach that you're talking about and all those other elements that you're bringing into play, so the education that you do, you mentioned about care homes, other organizations that you can enable to be able to facilitate better care, and you support them to do that. Have you seen any really big success stories from that? Have you seen some really flourishing stories where people have made a real big difference through some of the input that you've had?
I think with care homes in particular, so we have a 24-hour advice line, which is manned by people from the hospice, and quite a few of the calls come from care homes who are asking advice with difficult end-of-life decisions. And through talking to them and kind of helping with particular situations, that's led on for us then to work with them to identify training issues. And we've been able to go back into those care homes and provide that care and that support and education. And that enables links of support to build up. I think another really great initiative that we have something called Tuesday Living Well Hub. And so we are aware that I think since COVID, our kind of way of delivering care and also our age of patients has really changed. So we don't really see the very old patients. We have really had a shift towards patients who are in the younger age bracket. And, you know, some of those patients, a lot of those patients still have families, they still go to work. And so they can't come into us in the normal, you know, times of day because they're doing other things. So we've got a Tuesday afternoon drop-in Living Well session downstairs in the street, and that people don't have to book, they just come in and they are able to see a doctor, a nurse, a member of the therapist team, and they can do something proactively then on that afternoon. And that has really, we've seen a real growth in that. And something that we are going to be piloting is the same format for a young person's group. There is a real lack of provision for the kind of age 18 to 50 in this area, for them to have the peer support and kind of the advice. And so that is something that we will be piloting within the next few months.
Excellent.
So you know, I think that's a real value of working here, that we can identify where there is a need or where we can do things differently. And I think that is one of the reasons why I've stayed here so long. And because we have got that time, we have got that space, we can really think about what is it our patient and family group need. And, you know, if we get very few complaints, but if we do, it's really learning from some of the things that have been identified, not just ignoring it and saying, okay, right, we didn't get that right that time. Well, how can we do it differently this time? So it's an exciting place to work. That sounds a bit weird, but it really is. It really is.
No, of course it is, because you're there empowered to make a difference for the community that you know inside out. And the reasons that you do are, I mean, partly will come from the conversation I was having before with Sarah, the way that the hospice so integrally forms a big linchpin in the community in ways that aren't really necessarily to do with the care that's being provided or actually even the purpose behind it. But that enables you to understand who's around you, who is your demographic. Because you know, we talk about how we plan care around data, around numbers, which is all very, very important. You have to do things around objective numbers. But at the same time, when you're having people coming and telling you face to face, hey, look, this is the pressure we're facing, or this is the challenge that I had with my relative's end of life care, that's something you can really listen to and act upon. You've got that infrastructure around you with some brilliant leaders like yourself. You've got a fantastic team that can help just push that forward. So why wouldn't that be exciting? You're not you're only a slave unto yourself to make sure that you deliver what you can. But of course, as we've been hinting at, the infrastructure and the support behind it has to be there.
It does. And I think there's still a misconception with people that they don't actually realise how much it costs to be able to, run a service such as this 7 days a week, 36, however many days of the year, I can't remember. So
not quite a leap year today.
No, it's not a leap year this year. But I think it's still breaking down those barriers and saying, you know, we still want to be able to provide this service, but we need to have that support from our communities to be able to do that, and to be able to carry on. And I think moving forward, so obviously the IPU is incredibly important because we do look after those most complex patients, but it's a finite resource. And so we are moving to, you know, further enhance our community provision. The NHS 10-year plan is about looking at how we can do things in the community and support patients. And we have to be integral in that support. But we also need to make sure that we don't keep our patients. We have been doing this for quite some time. We have our patients for a period of time and then we discharge and then they are re-referred. And that's as it should be. We can't keep everybody on our books.
No, but it also just makes sense that when you boil it down, you're optimizing things for them in the first instance, with the benefit of your multidisciplinary team approach that can, really help people understand where their journey is going. And have the right provisions put in place. The work that you do in the community to enable people to be able to react to changes when they need to, because of course, you know, in this sphere, things will change very quickly sometimes, and it's not always predictable. And if you've got a care home that's skilled and able to say, okay, do you know what? Right, we need a syringe driver now.
Yeah.
And we need it now, and we can do it now, and we're able to facilitate that. We've been given the skill set by your generosity, but we can deliver that great care because of the infrastructure that you provide to the community. So of course it makes sense if you have that optimized scenario that you do so well to then be referred back if needed. Yeah. But you will have put so many things in place already that enable that to happen as smoothly as it can.
Yeah. And I think it's also empowering the patient as well. And I think we shouldn't forget that. We absolutely need to empower the patient and we need to encourage them to set those goals. What are the things that are really important to them and to their families? And I think sometimes we surmise we know by looking at their how they present with their symptoms. But actually when you really talk to the patient and find out, yes, they might have pain, which is absolutely unbearable, but the thing they're really worried about is leaving their family, leaving their dog, and you have to unpick those, because it is all about what is important to the patient. And we have outcome measures. We slightly tweak them so that we really ask that question to our patients: what is important to you? What can we help with? And those two questions have been really transformative, and they've really helped with us to provide the right care to those patients. And
can you give me some examples? I mean, how has it shaped or changed the way that you deliver that care?
Anybody, so but the people who are in the last days of life, and you imagine that they won't be able to do very much at all, and they won't really have anything that they want to achieve. But that's not true at all. And it's those tiny things. So we had a lady who was bedbound. She wasn't really eating and drinking. It was around about a Christmas period, and what she really wanted was a taste of champagne. And so we enabled that to happen by we don't use them anymore, but having a little sponge where we dipped it in champagne. And we gave that to her. So that's one thing. Other things are that people want to drive a sports car. People want to see their horse or their pet for the last time. We have lots of animals come onto the inpatient unit. We've had a horse that's come outside into the car park. We've had llamas here. I don't think we've really ever been able to say, no, we can't do that. And the teams absolutely go above and beyond. We have weddings, christenings, wakes after funerals where we've looked after a patient. And that is all about, using this space in the way that it should be. And And I think the achievements with people wanting to walk or even just be able to sit up in bed, just get out where they might have been in bed for several months. And our therapies team really helped to enable that. You know, we've got a gym. We were one of the first hospices to have a gym, and everybody was, why have you got a gym?
Yeah, would be the natural response, right?
Absolutely. But that gym is really used. People come in to use it. People come down off the ward to use it. And it's about that bit of normality.
Yeah.
You know, most people go to a gym.
Yeah.
Why should it stop when they are, you know, moving towards end of life? So it's bringing that, it's bringing the normal back. And, you know, they're sorting out the drinks down there. We have a drinks trolley that goes around, you know, at pre-meals. Feels a little bit like being on an aeroplane, but it really, it's that social aspect. It really works, and it encourages people to eat and drink more normally. And why shouldn't it? Why shouldn't people be doing that?
No, and that resonates through everything here. I mean, you know, this lovely place behind us, the street, cafe, place where people can sit, enjoy, and it is, you know, if you were to take a photo of this and just show it to somebody, guess where I am?
Yeah.
What's the last thing they're going to say? Hospice.
Yeah.
But how wonderful it is that you integrate your, you know, the care that you provide clinically is so clearly, to me, dictated and governed by that whole culture that you have.
Yeah.
So you know, absolutely, you will maintain the excellent standards, but it's always with that mind of, but what is important to that person? How do we get normality here, and how do we make it so that this isn't about death? It's about living in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is that. So it's absolutely living in the moment and moments.
Yes.
That will, you know, happen before. I think it's supporting, because, you know, we have the patient and we look after the patient, and then the patient dies, but then it doesn't stop, because then we have the family.
Of course.
And we have to make sure that we continue to help support them as well. And having this building means that, as I said earlier, we don't have to necessarily be hands-on, but it is that space where people can come. You know, we've got great gardens outside. People will come back and sit in the gardens. You know, they will give us roses to plant in memory, and all of those things, which it's part of their journey afterwards to help them to deal with difficult situations. I think what I haven't mentioned is kind of our volunteers. And we would not be able to do any of what we do without our volunteer workforce. We are moving into thinking about, you know, in the early days, volunteers were an older generation of people, because that's how, you know, they have the time. And we have really seen a change in the volunteer roles that we have got. And one of our I love this project. It's my absolute favourite thing, is that we've done a project for probably about 7 or 8 years, where we take a group of 16 to 22-year-olds and who's still at school doing their A-levels, not always going into medicine or that kind of thing, but they come and do a 6-month placement with us, and they do a shift on the IPU every week. And that has, I cannot say how much that has really transformed even the team. I mean, when we first started it was like, how can we have those young people coming into a place where they will see people who are dying, they will see suffering, they will see some things which, you know, you could argue, should they see at that age? But we have had no negative feedback from both them and both from our teams. And also the patients and families absolutely enjoy the opportunity to talk to somebody different, find out about them. And also the feedback from the young clinical volunteers is they're able to listen, they're able to tell people about their days, and also, you know, that interchange. And the real lovely bit is when we have a 6-month, when it ends, they come and do a presentation for us. And it really, you know, they always talk about how much they've grown as people. And we've several have become doctors, paramedics, ambulance drivers.
Wonderful.
It's an absolutely amazing project.
Wonderful. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like,
You light up talking about it.
I do.
Yeah.
Even my son's done it. He probably did it because I kept talking about it for years and years. And
Mum, all right.
and he is not, my son is not he doesn't want to go into medicine. He is a 6'4", plays rugby, kind of boy's boy.
Sounds like a medic to me, but okay, fine. Yeah.
But what he got out of it was that ability to be. I mean, it was great. He could see people in a different format.
Yeah.
He could practice talking to people who are in a difficult situation, and he still talks about it now. Yeah. And I think all of them use it on their CVs, and they come back and tell us,
yes,
this is really what shaped my career.
Incredible. And you know what? One thing you mentioned around that, you said, some people might have some conceptions about, well, should people really be experiencing this? And my answer is 100% in the right environment, where you've got the support to understand and the people around you to help you internalize and process what it is that you're seeing sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, we would never say to anybody, if you're not feeling happy about this, don't go into this situation. Yeah. But I think I would caveat that, take this opportunity to experience what you can with the support of our team. And that goes for our junior doctors, because our junior doctors come in and they've had very little experience with end-of-life care, communicating difficult conversations, even seeing a dead body. So I think we're also formative in helping them, helping the next generation of medics to. This is really important work that we do, and it is also the kind of the baseline for people. If you can talk to somebody, you can go on to deliver excellent care wherever you are, but not everybody gets that right.
No, and I completely second what you're saying around junior doctors and how they experience that. I mean, during my GP training, one of the best placements I had was in the hospice. That 4 months I won't forget, and that taught me so much around those conversations. The clinical stuff was great, of course, and I still use that. That was a placement I did back in 2013, and I still use the knowledge I had then that's still relevant now in terms of how I manage things. But I won't ever forget that, and the fierceness by which the teams around were dedicated to the care is what really heaven help you if you were a clinician there not giving 1,000% for your patients, because you would know about it very quickly. And I say that as a very good thing. I don't say that as an authoritative, strict thing. I say that as that really shows you just people are wearing their hearts on their sleeves here, trying to make sure that people get the best experience.
Yes.
And what you're saying here and all those initiatives that you guys have put in place, fostering the next generation, but even if they're not going into those fields, they're learning skills they would never have the opportunity to get in first-hand real life. That's such a valuable thing. I mean, what an amazing thing that is that you do.
It is, and to be part of that as well is really, it gives real job satisfaction. And I think, I need to acknowledge our teams. Our teams are great and they absolutely go above and beyond. It takes a certain type of person to come and work in a place like this. And, we have a brilliant team. And so that also makes my job easier, because we're working with like-minded people who want to do the absolute best.
Yes. And you know what it means for each other. So therefore you go that extra step for each other, not just the person in front of you.
We do.
Yeah.
I think we've seen, I would not be telling the truth if I said, everything is great, everything's wonderful, because it's not always. And I think that is about the more complex patients that we see. The expectation, I think that's changed. People have, now more awareness about, what goes on. They Google it. There's lots more treatments available.
Sure.
But it's about supporting those teams to carry on delivering that high quality care. And that is a huge part of my role.
Brilliant. And Ruth, just is there any one message that you would love for people to hear or take away from this conversation? What would that be?
Well, so I think come and see us. come and visit the hospice, come and see what we do. And I think don't stop supporting us. That's the number one thing, because if we don't have the support, we won't be able to carry on.
Absolutely. Ruth, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I loved hearing the zeal by which you talk about some of that as well. Like you really are invested in this, and what we see around us shows that everyone is, and that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
So guys, thanks so much for having a listen. And if you're affected by anything that we talked about here, or if you're inspired to help out, please go and visit the website for St. Wilfrid's Hospice, which I'll put in the description below.